The aftermath of Beak left Rose both exhilarated and exhausted. The high ground that had offered a perfect vantage now seemed almost haunted, the smoke from the Panther still rising as a silent testament to physics, skill, and sheer audacity. Around him, the other Jackson crews whispered, marveling at the impossible shot. For 3 weeks, Rose had been an unknown among the battalion, an inexperienced gunner with 0 confirmed kills. Now he was a legend, if only briefly. Yet victory brought little time to savor. Intelligence reports flowed in continuously. The Germans, despite suffering occasional extreme-range losses, were adapting, repositioning their armored units, and launching local counterattacks. The 814th Tank Destroyer Battalion was tasked with supporting Operation Clipper, a push to clear German forces from fortified positions along the Siegfried Line, specifically the Gland-Kurchchin sector. Every hill, forest edge, and road junction mattered. Every Panther that could move was a threat, and American tank destroyers were expected to punch holes through what the Germans considered nearly invulnerable armor. For Rose, the next days were a baptism of fire in close-range combat. Unlike Beak, where line of sight and distance favored the gunner's calculations, the upcoming engagements demanded lightning reflexes, split-second decisions, and a constant awareness that hesitation equaled death. The N-36 Jackson's 90mm gun was powerful, yes, but Panther crews had learned well over years on the Eastern Front. They moved with discipline, used terrain for cover, and rarely presented broadside targets in open fields. December 16, 1944 would change everything. The Battle of the Bulge began with the Germans launching a massive counteroffensive through the Ardennes, employing nearly 200,000 troops and 600 tanks, including the newest Panther and King Tigers. The 814th, along with other armored units, received emergency orders: redeploy south immediately to hold the town of St. Vith, a critical road junction. If St. Vith fell, the Northern American defensive line would collapse, giving German forces direct access to the Meuse River crossings. The roads were chaos. Snowdrifts, retreating supply convoys, and scattered infantry created a labyrinth of potential hazards. Rose's M36 Jackson moved cautiously, turret swiveling, eyes scanning, knowing that at any moment a Panther or Tiger could emerge from the woods and turn the vehicle into a fiery tomb. By the time the battalion arrived on December 19th, German armored battalions were already probing American positions. Combat in St. Vith was merciless. Unlike Beak, the engagements were measured in hundreds of yards, not miles. Panthers emerged from tree lines at 300 yards, German infantry wielded Panzerfausts in ambush, and American tank destroyers had to react instantaneously. Rose's training and experience from the extreme-range shot at Beak now manifested differently. Intuition, timing, and coordination with the crew were as critical as precise calculations. On December 21, 1944, dawn brought a German attack. 4 Panthers advanced, supported by 2 companies of Panzer Grenadiers. Rose's Jackson held the south edge of St. Vith with a clear line of fire over a critical road junction. Within the first minute, 2 Panthers erupted in flames from perfectly placed 90mm shots. Return fire destroyed 1 M36 and damaged 2 others, but the Americans held their ground. By the end of 14 brutal minutes, all 4 Panthers lay burning, and the German infantry withdrew, leaving behind a landscape scarred by fire, smoke, and frozen footprints of battle. The contrast between Beak and St. Vith was stark. At Beak, Rose had leveraged distance, physics, and the rarity of German tactical errors to achieve a historic kill. At St. Vith, it was raw reflex, teamwork, and repeated exposure to lethal danger that kept him alive. Each scenario demanded a different form of mastery, yet both highlighted the evolving battlefield realities of late 1944. Armored warfare was a deadly dance of observation, firepower, and split-second judgment. By the end of December, Rose's Jackson had fired dozens of rounds, engaged multiple enemy tanks, and survived through a combination of skill, luck, and the deadly power of the 90mm M3 gun. His extreme-range shot at Beak became a legend within the 814th, a story retold to new gunners as a benchmark of what was theoretically possible with courage, physics, and a little audacity. But the brutal truth of St. Vith reminded everyone that armored warfare rarely allowed for heroics from 2.5 miles out. In close quarters, there was only precision, discipline, and sheer nerve. By December 22nd, the 814th Tank Destroyer Battalion was fully entrenched around St. Vith. Snow covered the fields in thick, silent layers, masking mines, shell craters, and hidden German patrols. Visibility was deceptive. Whitewashed trees and smoke from distant skirmishes created optical illusions that could fool even experienced gunners. Every shadow could conceal a Panther, a Tiger, or a hidden Pak-40 anti-tank gun. For Rose and his crew, the lesson was clear. Complacency was fatal. The Germans, having observed the American defense, adapted quickly. Panther crews moved in small, staggered formations, keeping some vehicles concealed while others drew American fire. King Tigers, where present, were positioned to dominate open approaches, forcing tank destroyers to expose themselves for even a chance at a shot. The tactical doctrine the Americans had relied on at Beak, distance, clear line of sight, and physics, was largely useless here. Survival depended on rapid target acquisition, effective communication between driver, commander, loader, and gunner, and anticipating enemy maneuvers. Rose's Jackson took up repeated positions along the southern perimeter. Each relocation demanded precision. The vehicle's weight, the slippery snow, and the uneven terrain made every movement a potential disaster. A misaligned track or a sudden German mortar strike could immobilize the M36, turning it into a stationary target for the inevitable Panther salvo. Yet even in these conditions, the crew worked with near-perfect coordination. The commander scanned the tree lines, identifying movement. Rose's eyes remained glued to the M76F sight, calculating lead and elevation in seconds rather than minutes. The loader kept a steady rhythm, chambering AP rounds, while the driver adjusted position for optimal angles. At 0900 hours, German forces launched a probing attack from the northeast. Two Panthers emerged from a wooded ridge approximately 900 yards away. This was standard engagement range for tank destroyers, but every encounter carried lethal risk. Rose swung the gun toward the nearest Panther. Unlike the calculated near-miraculous shot at Beak, this engagement demanded instinct honed under fire. His first round struck just behind the turret, ricocheting harmlessly. Another Panther had superior side armor angles in close terrain. He corrected, fired a second, scoring a hit on the hull that immobilized the tank. A third round penetrated the side armor, igniting stored ammunition. The Panther erupted in fire, and the second enemy tank retreated behind the tree line, shielded from American fire. The fighting escalated over the next hours. Panzer Grenadiers attempted to flank the Jackson's position using snowbanks and ruined structures for cover. Rose's crew responded with well-aimed 90mm HE rounds, demolishing infantry positions and preventing the Germans from closing the distance. In these conditions, the line between victory and death was measured in seconds. Hesitation meant a tank could be overrun. Misjudgment of speed or angle could bounce a shell harmlessly off Panther frontal armor. This intense, close-range combat revealed another truth. The psychological component of tank warfare was just as deadly as the physical. Rose noted the subtle signs of German crews: slight hesitations, abrupt turret movements, or a vehicle that seemed to linger in the open, indications that they were aware of the M36's positions and calculating their own response. Conversely, he had to mask the Jackson's presence, firing from hull-down positions and relocating frequently to avoid being spotted. Every shot, every maneuver was a chess move where a single error meant death. By the evening of December 22nd, the battalion had stabilized its perimeter around St. Vith. Casualties were light compared to the previous month's engagements at the Siegfried Line, but the toll on nerves was high.
Rose and his crew had fired dozens of rounds in sustained combat, from 900-yard skirmishes to the legendary 4,600-yard kill at Beak, a range that now felt almost surreal in comparison. They huddled in the freezing tank, sharing rations and silent observation of the surrounding landscape, waiting for the next German probe. Even in these quieter moments, the lessons of Beak remained vivid. Extreme range engagements, once seen as theoretical or impossible, had proven the M36's capabilities, but the brutal reality of close combat underscored that most battles wouldn't allow the luxury of physics and patience. Survival, more often than not, depended on reflexes, teamwork, and the ability to adapt instantly to rapidly shifting situations. As December 23rd dawned, new intelligence suggested a larger German push was imminent, targeting multiple junctions around the Ardennes. For the 814th, it meant remaining on high alert, constantly scanning fields, forests, and roads for the telltale shapes of Panther and Tiger tanks. Rose adjusted the M76F sight, tracing reticle marks over the horizon, mentally preparing for yet another test of skill, nerve, and the deadly arithmetic of armored warfare. The stage was set for what would become some of the fiercest armored combat of the European theater, a crucible where experience, courage, and mechanical mastery would be tested under the harshest conditions imaginable.
The withdrawal from St. Vith was brutal. American forces had been forced to abandon the town under relentless German pressure. Snow and mud coated every surface, turning roads into treacherous pathways for tanks and trucks alike. Artillery fire shattered buildings, and the air was thick with smoke, the acrid stench of diesel, cordite, and burning steel. Rose's M36 Jackson bore the scars of combat. 2 direct hits from German 75mm guns had ricocheted off the frontal armor, leaving the vehicle intact. The sloped glacis plate, angled at roughly 55 degrees, effectively made the frontal armor equivalent to 140mm against incoming rounds. The open-top turret, however, remained vulnerable. Air bursts from artillery and plunging fire had destroyed other M36s during the week-long defense, proving that even the most robust American tank destroyer had limits. During the withdrawal, the 814th Tank Destroyer Battalion acted as a rear guard, engaging German pursuit forces at every defensible position. Rose fired his 90mm gun 43 times under constant threat, all at ranges under 1,000 yards. There was no time for careful calculations, only reflexive mathematics of survival. Each shot was life or death. Unlike the legendary engagement at Beak, this combat demanded speed and instinct. Rose relied not on theoretical ranges, but on a combination of experience, intuition, and the familiarity he had gained with the M76F sight over weeks of training and combat. The lessons of Beak never left him, but they were now part of a different kind of warfare. At extreme range, victory depended on calculation. In the Ardennes, survival depended on execution under fire. American casualties were high. 3 Jacksons destroyed, 26 crewmen killed or wounded. Yet Rose survived. Every target he neutralized contributed to the slow, desperate American withdrawal and delayed the German advance. By January 1945, the 814th Tank Destroyer Battalion was reconstituted. 19 M36 Jacksons had been lost during the Bulge, 26 crewmen killed, 41 wounded. Replacement vehicles arrived from French depots. Crews were fresh from training in the United States, many without any combat experience. Rose assumed a new role, mentor and instructor. He taught these new gunners how to estimate range, adjust for wind and elevation, and master the M76F telescopic sight. Questions inevitably came. What about your 4,600-yard shot? Rose always shrugged. He said, "Forget it." Such engagements were unique, almost impossible. What mattered was teaching survival, how to hit a Panther at 500 yards while under fire. That skill saved lives. By February, the battalion returned to combat operations, supporting the American push toward the Rhine River. German resistance, though collapsing, remained fierce at key defensive positions. Panthers and King Tigers still appeared sporadically, their crews skilled, disciplined, and desperate. Rose's M36 Jackson remained the spearhead, the most effective American answer to heavy German armor. Its 90mm gun could penetrate any German tank at normal combat ranges, a terrifying prospect for enemy crews. During the Rhine River crossing in March, Rose's unit engaged elements of 3 Panzer divisions entrenched on the east bank. The fighting was intense but brief. American artillery and air support were decisive. Within 48 hours, German positions crumbled. Rose's company knocked out 6 Panthers and 2 King Tigers, all under 800 yards. Here again, precision and coordination proved decisive. April brought the final push into Germany's industrial heartland. The 814th advanced through the Ruhr pocket, encountering scattered resistance. Most German armor had been destroyed, abandoned, or immobilized by fuel shortages. Panthers and Tigers littered the landscape as burning hulks or derelict frames, a grim testament to the previous years of war. Rose's last combat action occurred on April 23rd near the Elbe River. A single Panther attempted retreat at roughly 600 yards. 2 well-placed rounds from Rose's Jackson destroyed it. That marked his 47th confirmed kill with the M36 90mm gun. Only one of his kills, the legendary 4,600-yard shot at Beak, had been at extreme range. The rest, 46 engagements, had been closer, deadly, and intensely personal. Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945. The 814th Tank Destroyer Battalion prepared for redeployment to the Pacific Theater, with plans to equip new M36 variants against Japanese armor. Fate intervened. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki made the invasion unnecessary. Rose never fired his 90mm gun in combat again. The December 1st engagement at Beak remained documented in after-action reports and Army records. It became a reference point for gunnery instructors, military historians, and armored warfare analysts. Rose's shot proved the theoretical maximum range of Second World War-era tank guns was achievable in real combat under precise conditions. Yet its true significance lay not in distance alone, but in what it revealed about armored warfare. The M36 Jackson was the culmination of American tank destroyer development, capable of matching and surpassing the heaviest German tanks under skilled hands. For 47 years, Rose's 4,600-yard shot stood as the second longest confirmed tank kill in military history. It was not until February 26, 1991, that a British Challenger 1 tank, using laser rangefinders, ballistic computers, and thermal optics, recorded a kill at 5,100 yards during the Gulf War. The tools had changed. The principle remained. Rose had achieved what no other American gunner could, using mechanical controls, optical sights, and intuition compressed from 3 weeks of experience. Rose survived the war, leaving active duty in 1946. The Army offered positions as a gunnery instructor at Fort Knox, but he declined. After 3 years of shooting at human targets, he wanted a life away from the battlefield. He never spoke publicly about his extreme-range engagement. No memoirs, no interviews, no attempts to claim fame. His accomplishment lived quietly in archives, only discovered decades later by historians researching armored warfare. The story of Lieutenant Alfred Rose reminds us of the human element behind the steel. Calculations, courage, and composure under pressure define true heroism. The 4,600-yard shot at Beak was more than a record. It was a window into the evolution of armored combat, a testament to the capabilities of the M36 Jackson, and a quiet but extraordinary achievement of a young gunner in a war defined by chaos, fire, and precision.
Lieutenant Alfred Rose is a reminder that history isn't just about numbers or dates. It's about the men and women whose courage, skill, and determination shaped the course of events. One shot at 4,600 yards proved that precision, instinct, and nerves of steel could achieve what seemed impossible. His legacy lives on not in fame or accolades, but in the quiet records and the lessons learned by future generations of soldiers.
If you found this story as remarkable as we did, make sure to hit that like button Every like helps us bring more forgotten stories of heroism to light. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive into history's most extraordinary moments. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Are you watching from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, or elsewhere? And if you have a family member who served, let us know. We'd love to honor their story too. Thank you for helping keep history alive.